Most SUVs are designed to survive the warranty and then slowly become someone else's problem. That's when transmissions start slipping, electronics start failing, and repair bills arrive right after the vehicle is paid off. But a few SUVs have built a very different reputation, not because they're luxurious, not because they're exciting, because they keep working after 100,000 miles. Today we're looking at three cheap SUVs worth owning after warranty, and one of them proves that modern hybrid technology might actually be less scary than many traditional SUVs. But before we start, the most reliable SUV isn't always the one with the best reputation. Sometimes it's the one with the fewest opportunities to fail. And that's exactly why this first SUV made the list. The Honda CR-V has never been the coolest SUV. That's actually part of its advantage. Honda wasn't trying to reinvent transportation, they were trying to build something that worked. And for long-term ownership, that's exactly what you want. I know a guy who runs a small landscaping business outside of Columbus. He bought his 2014 CR-V at 186,000 miles for just under $10,000. It's now at 241,000, one alternator, one set of tires. That's it. No surprises, no unplanned shop visits. He told me he'll drive it until the wheels fall off. At this point, I believe him. Right now, a clean 2012 to 2016 CR-V sits between $13,000 and $30,000. That range shifts with mileage, condition, and region. But that's real money for a vehicle that can still run another 100,000 miles. Under the hood is Honda's 2.4-liter naturally aspirated four-cylinder engine, producing around 185 horsepower. On screen, Cite 1. Nothing exotic, nothing complicated, just a proven design. Notice what's missing: no turbocharger, no expensive performance hardware, no complicated systems generating excess heat. And heat is one of the biggest enemies of reliability. Every turbocharged engine has to manage extremely high temperatures. The CR-V avoids that challenge entirely. That doesn't mean it's fast, it means it's predictable. And predictable vehicles are usually cheap vehicles to own. Another advantage is sheer volume. Honda sold millions of CR-Vs. That means replacement parts are everywhere. Aftermarket support is huge. Mechanics know them inside and out. When a vehicle becomes common enough, ownership gets easier. But here's what most buyers never think about. The repair itself is only half the cost. The real cost is downtime. A vehicle that's easy to diagnose and repair spends less time sitting in a shop. That's a hidden reliability advantage. No vehicle is perfect. Some later CR-Vs developed vibration complaints at idle. Some owners reported minor oil consumption as mileage increased. But compared to the failures that can bankrupt owners of luxury SUVs, these are relatively manageable issues. Keep up with fluid changes, address small problems early, and these vehicles can stay on the road for an incredibly long time. That's why they're still everywhere. People buy them and never find a reason to get rid of them. Now let's move up in size because family vehicles face a completely different challenge. More passengers, more cargo, more road trips, more opportunities for something to break. The second-generation Highlander represents something increasingly rare. An SUV designed before manufacturers became obsessed with adding technology to everything. A couple I know bought a 2010 Highlander when their second kid was born. They needed space. They needed dependability. They couldn't afford a mistake. That vehicle just crossed 210,000 miles. Same engine, same transmission. Their oldest kid is now in college. The Highlander is still doing school runs. That's not a coincidence. That's engineering priorities. A well-maintained 2008 to 2013 Highlander is realistically priced between $10,000 and $18,000. For a three-row family SUV with this track record, that's hard to argue with. At the center of the package is Toyota's 3.5-liter V6, the famous 2GR-FE, producing around 270 horsepower. Enough power for daily driving, enough power for road trips, enough power for towing, without constantly pushing the engine to its limits. Yet this next SUV built one of the strongest reliability reputations in the industry. This is one of the biggest misconceptions in modern automotive design. More power doesn't automatically mean less reliability. An unstressed engine often lasts longer than a smaller engine working harder. and the 2GRFE earned its reputation by doing exactly that. Toyota used variations of this engine in numerous vehicles. That means decades of real-world data, millions of owners, millions of miles. That's the kind of evidence you want when buying a used SUV. But the engine isn't the most important thing here. The most important thing is what Toyota chose not to include. No air suspension, no overly complex drivetrain systems, no experimental luxury features, because every additional system creates another opportunity for failure. The Highlander keeps things relatively simple, and simplicity ages well. Eventually you'll see normal wear. Gaskets age, rubber components age, minor leaks can develop. That's expected. The question is whether the expensive components survive, and that's where the Highlander shines. Many examples have crossed 250,000 miles, some have exceeded 300,000 miles. Not because they're magical, because the engineering priorities were different. Toyota focused on longevity first, everything else came second. Let's clear something up. No SUV lasts forever, not a Honda, not a Toyota, not anything. What matters is how expensive ownership becomes as the years pass. I call this reliability per dollar. It's the real number that matters. Not the sticker price, not the monthly payment, but how much it actually costs per mile, per years to keep a vehicle running. That's the math most people skip. And it's exactly why a cheap SUV sometimes ends up being the most expensive vehicle you'll ever own. The best post-warranty SUVs aren't perfect. They're simply designed to age gracefully. And that's where our final SUV becomes interesting. Because 10 years ago, most people would have laughed if you called a hybrid a long-term ownership vehicle. Today, that assumption looks increasingly outdated. This is the modern choice, and probably the most controversial one, because many buyers still hear the word hybrid and immediately think expensive batteries, complicated electronics, potential disaster. But Toyota's hybrid technology has been evolving for decades, and the RAV4 hybrid benefits from all of that experience. I spoke with a nurse who commutes 45 miles each way, every single day. She picked up a used 2020 RAV4 hybrid with 48,000 miles for just under $30,000. 2 years later, 112,000 miles on the clock. One battery-related alert, cleared by a software update. That's it. She told me her only regret is not switching to hybrids sooner. Not because of the technology, because of the fuel bill she was paying for years before. Right now, used RAV4 hybrids in the 2019 to 2022 range cite between $28,000 and $38,000. That's higher than the CR-V or the Highlander. But factor in the fuel savings and reduced maintenance costs, and that gap closes faster than most people expect. Under the hood is a 2.5-liter Atkinson cycle engine paired with Toyota's hybrid drive system. Combined output exceeds 200 horsepower. But that's not what makes this vehicle interesting. The transmission is, because it doesn't function like a traditional automatic. Toyota's eCVT uses a planetary gear set design, no traditional shift points, no conventional clutch packs, no belt-driven CVT arrangement. The result is a surprisingly elegant system, mechanically simpler than many people realize. And then we get to fuel economy, because this is where ownership costs really change. Around 40 miles per gallon combined. That means every mile costs less, every commute costs less, every road trip costs less. Over 10 years, that difference becomes significant. And there's another benefit many people ignore. Regenerative braking. The hybrid system helps slow the vehicle. That means less brake wear, longer pad life, longer rotor life, fewer maintenance visits. A lot of people focus on hypothetical future battery costs. Meanwhile, they're ignoring the maintenance costs they're already avoiding. The most important thing to inspect is the high-voltage cable system on certain model years, particularly in areas where road salt is common. Outside of that concern, Toyota's hybrid technology now has one of the largest real-world reliability datasets in the industry. At this point, it's not experimental, it's proven. Regardless of which SUV you choose. Number 1, service records. Documentation matters. Number 2, always inspect a cold start. That's when many problems reveal themselves. Number 3, pay attention to transmission behavior. Smooth is good, hesitation is bad. Number 4, check underneath for rust. A healthy engine means nothing if the structure is compromised. A reliable SUV with poor maintenance history is usually a worse purchase than an average SUV that was cared for properly. And this is where most people get it wrong. They buy vehicles based on features, instead of buying vehicles based on engineering. The touchscreen won't get you to 250,000 miles. The panoramic roof won't get you to 250,000 miles.